Good evening, guys. I hope that you are doing well, and I'm so glad that you are joining us tonight. Just so everybody is clear, this is the secondary ELA session. So if you are not in the right place, just let us know in the chat and we can get you to where you need to go. But if you are in the right place, then just know I'm so excited because I am with my people tonight. So it is going to be fun, and I've got lots of stuff that we're going to talk about and share and do. And so just welcome. And here we are at prep session 11. So you have one more after this. I mean, it's amazing that this has gone so fast, and I think that it just feels like it's gone so fast because it's been such a good time. So I hope that you guys agree with that. We have our reminders. Just so you know, again, the session is going to be recorded, and we will have some conversation time at the end, and so we'll stop recording then. So if you have some questions that you don't want shared on the recording, you can ask then. You can put those in the chat, all the things that you're familiar with. Remember to complete the attendance survey. It's going to be at the end of the session, and that you have to be registered. Also, you want to make sure that you bookmark the page that has all the resource documents. In just a second, I'm going to share the link for this presentation in the chat so that you can click on that, because there are going to be several links within the session that I'm going to ask you to go to. And so if you visit the Canva public link, then you'll have access to all those links. I'm going to try to put some things in the chat as we're moving throughout, but essentially it's just going to be me tonight. And so I want to make certain that you have access to everything as we're going through it. So you're going to have access to the Canva link in just a second. And so while I'm getting that there for you, I mean, how perfect that on ELA night, we are showing our favorite book. I mean, I have to say that it's obvious that that means that we're the favorite group, right? Because it's book night, it's ELA night. And so what we need you to do, y'all know the drill, is to share your favorite book. And we're going to talk about my favorite books and books that kind of changed my life in just a second. But until then, I am in a hotel in Nashville, so I don't have my book with me, but what I do have is my wallet. I mean, I think this just kind of sums up what a big nerd I am, because my wallet is The Great Gatsby. It is a book. So here's my book for the time being, but I would ask that if you feel comfortable, just turn that video on and share your favorite book. And we're going to take a picture. And while we're doing that, I'm going to get that Canva link in for you.
I will grab some pictures, Charissa, while they are holding up. Let me go back and see everybody. So if you'll hold those up one more time, and she's clicking around, I am going to snap some pictures. Love it. What is William holding up there? I tried to hold up Charlotte's way up. Okay, I'm getting them. I got them. I got them. And while she's doing that, oh, I don't know that one, Fourth Wing. Okay, new one for me. If you are not secondary ELA, one, you should check your email. But check in the chat all the other sessions. If you're not secondary ELA, there's a session for every content area tonight, but they're all in different links. So click on the link I just put in the chat. We'll put it in there again, and it will get you where you need to go.
Thank you so much. Okay, so in the chat, I put the Canva link. This is the public view link, so you have access to the entire session. And again, I just need you to pull up this Canva link. and just kind of set it to the side. As we're moving throughout, I'm going to ask you to click on some things. And I hope to make this fairly interactive. And I hope to give you some things that you could use in your classroom tomorrow. So let's just get started. I am Charissa Lambert, and some of you might remember me. I presented with Lee Twig on lesson planning, and it feels like it was a long time ago, and it also feels like it was yesterday. But I work with the Office of School Improvement as a literacy specialist for grades 4 through 12. And so I just think, again, this is such a great night for us because I want to talk about the supports that are available to you guys in the secondary world that are kind of new. This position was created back in January. And so this is such a great time to be in the classroom because there are lots of things that are available for you guys. And I'm going to talk about some other folks that are even closer to some of your regions that are in the same position. I specifically work in regions 1 through 7 with a priority of the governor's turnaround schools in Birmingham and Huntsville. And so you have my contact information on that QR code that's on the screen, but also you'll have this later. So don't worry about saving that. But another resource that you guys have is Kim Brown, and she is our new ELA specialist. She works in Montgomery at Gordon Persons, and this is her email address on the screen. She is a wealth of knowledge, and she is amazing. I like to think of her as like our state department head. She is the person that if you have specific questions that deal with ELA, content, curriculum, any of these things, and you don't have somebody within your district that has those answers for you, then reach out to Kim Brown. She is amazing. If she doesn't know the answer, she's going to find it for you. So she has been such a wonderful thought partner, and she has put together a lot of great things and has some great ideas for secondary, well, not just secondary, but ELA as a whole. And so again, make sure that you're using her. And then also, I want you to look at the screen and think about the regions that you guys are teaching in. And these are the OSI literacy specialists. So when we think of literacy, I know I've said this before, but when we think of literacy, obviously we're thinking about ELA. But the fact of the matter is the literacy specialist jobs are to make certain that everybody understands that everybody has literacy standards. So we're here to ensure that all the content areas are supporting the things that we as ELA teachers know should be happening all over the place. So on your Canvas screen, you don't have to click it, but I just want you to know that that link that says visit our sway is active. And when you go to our sway, there are some Padlets there that we've created that have a lot of resources for you. There are some ACAP and ACT resources. There are resources for writing in all the content areas. There's all kinds of stuff. But just so you know, again, these are the ladies that support the various regions within the state. And so you have their contact information. Reach out if you have specific requests that you need any kind of assistance with as far as literacy is concerned. Even if it's just a question, we're here to support you. That is all our jobs entail. So reach out to us. This screen is one that I use in every professional learning that I do, because in this position, I have had an opportunity to engage in quite a bit of research dealing with literacy. And as an ELA person, I'll just say that I am a lover of words. And so when I saw literacy equals destiny, I could not stand it. It was so amazingly beautiful because to me, that sums up why we do what we do in a very succinct manner. The fact of the matter is For too long, we have worked under the impression that zip code equals destiny. And we're seeing that that is just not accurate. What we do every day in our classroom is creating that destiny for our students. And so when I saw that, I just thought, no, that's the why, and that's the purpose behind everything that we're doing. So I make it very purposeful to share this in every professional learning that I do for any subject matter, because I think it's so significant for us to kind of ground ourselves in the fact that what we do every day is so powerful. And so, having said that, I just want you to really think about the literacy's effects. And I want you to think about your own journey through literacy. And I'm going to just talk to you just for a second about mine. So, I kind of shared my Great Gatsby book wallet as my favorite book. But I know that there are a lot of you that probably have way too many favorites, just like me, to make a decision of just one. And so that's just kind of where I am as well. But if you'll notice on the screen, it has a Lincoln book that says The Dupe. And so in first grade, my mother thought that I didn't like to read, because I was that smart kid that recognized that if I just checked out Dr. Seuss books out of the library over and over again, that I was going to be able to read these books extremely fast. And then I could just get more and more and more. I could add up those points. I am from the era way before AR, but we would still have those competitions in class. And so all that to say that my mother said she would pay me if I checked out books and read books that were not Dr. Seuss. And so I call this The Dupe because I loved to read. I just didn't want to read what they wanted me to read. And so this was the very first book that she paid me for. And once I brought this home, she recognized that I was kind of throwing the wool over her eyes. And I made quite a bit of money off that for a hot minute. And then she had to stop that. But then my real love of reading came when I started reading the Babysitter's Club books. And then I called Zora Neale Hurston's book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, the game changer, because this was a book that I read the first time in college. And it was the moment that I realized that I wanted to be a teacher, because I wanted to share this book that really opened up my world to somebody's voice that was so unlike my own and really changed my worldview. And I decided at that moment I wanted to be a teacher, and I no longer wanted to be a lawyer. I was getting an English degree because I was supposed to be a lawyer. And then this changed it. So all that to say that this is the effect that literacy has had in my life and has really changed the trajectory of what I was going to do and where I was going to be. And so as we're moving through tonight, I just wanted you to kind of ground yourself in your learning and thinking about, again, the power that you hold in changing the lives of the students that you see every day through literacy. And so when we're talking about literacy, we're obviously not just talking about reading, but because it was favorite book night, I just wanted to share. So let's just jump into it. If you'll think back to a couple of sessions, well, it's been more than a couple of sessions, but several sessions ago with Mr. Jones, y'all looked at courses of study. And so on your screen, you have ALEX, you have alabamastandards.org, and then you have a document that is linked specifically to the ELA course of study. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm battling a cold, so I'm trying hard not to cough tonight, but if I have a coughing fit, I will mute and I'll turn some music on. But I just want you to know that all of these places are great places for you to locate your standards. And we're going to dive into some standards here at the beginning of the session, which is not real sexy and it might not be real fun, but the fact of the matter is where we have to start. But I want you to take a look at the course of study image that is below the title on the slide, because it's so significant that you recognize as a new teacher, if you came into a building and you inherited a hard copy document of the course of study and it doesn't look like that document, then that means it's an old course of study, and that means that it is no longer valid. And this is very significant because our standardized tests are geared towards the new course of study. And so if you are teaching students based upon the old standards, we're not preparing them in the way that we should. So I say that just because I want to make certain that you are using the correct course of study, just because I know in my situation, I was handed those hard copy courses of study when I walked into a building, and I had no clue what year it was from, if it was old, if it was new. And so I just want to make sure that you know what document to use as you are moving throughout. So as you are thinking about that, I want you to just kind of think about what your course of study looks like. And so in your, excuse me, in your course of study, this is what all grade levels 6 through 12 are going to look like. And so if you'll notice on the screen, it gives you just kind of a breakdown of the makeup of our standards. One thing that is so significant is that you recognize that for the standard number, there's just a number. So if you see some kind of resource, or if you see curriculum that uses a letter and a number, then that means that those standards are from our old course of study. The only letter that is used in our standard numbers is an R, and it doesn't stand for reading, it stands for recurring. So if you see any other letters other than that R, then that means that those are old standards. And that's very significant, again, for you to recognize, because a lot of times when we're using resources that say that they are aligned to our standards, sometimes they're not. And so it's just significant for us to know what we're looking for. I just know that you have your focus areas, and then you have your categories. But again, all of the grade levels 6 through 12 look like this. And I know that so many of you guys probably teach multiple grade levels within your school buildings. And so I think that it's significant that you see that they're all fashioned in the same way. In grades K through 5, there are some small changes, but more often than not, it's going to look like this. Okay, so when we're thinking about our standards, we're going to dive a little deeper tonight rather than just knowing where to go for our standards. And so again, I know that y'all did some things with your standards several weeks ago, but tonight we're really going to zone in on looking at some grade level standards and how to unpack them. And so when I talk about unpacking standards, I just want you to know that as a new teacher, and even a teacher 6 or 7 years in, when people were talking about unpacking the standards, I had no clue what they were talking about, because I had nobody that showed me exactly what had to happen. And so just know that there are a lot of people that you might be surrounded by daily that still don't really know how to do this. And so a lot of places such as Alex do provide unpacking of the standards for you, but it's so significant for us teachers to know how to do this so that we can really understand how and what we need to do to get our students up to proficiency on grade level standards. So on your screen, you have a kindergarten standard. So you might wonder why I'm starting with kindergarten, but why wouldn't I? It's the beginning. But also, I want you to recognize too that in the ELA course of study, that we have scaffolded standards all the way down from kindergarten up to 12th grade. So we're going to look at this kindergarten standard, and then we're going to look at a standard for 11th grade. And I want you to think about how we have built this foundation even in kindergarten as we scaffold up to 11th grade. So the kindergarten standard is actively listen and speak using agreed upon rules for discussion with guidance and support. So the three things that we need to think about when we're unpacking the standards is what the students need to know. So those are the nouns. What is it that the students must be able to do? These are skills. So this is going to be the verb of the standard. And then under what conditions? And this is identified for the performance of the standard. And just notice under that bullet that it says sometimes this appears in a standard, but not always. So as secondary folks, you might not have ever even seen conditions within your standards because ours really don't have this. So when we think about this and we're unpacking this standard, I want us to look at the do. So what is it that students are going to have to do for this standard? We want them to listen and speak, right? Notice that we've added that adverb actively. This is significant. What do the students need to know? What's the knowledge? What are the nouns within the standard? We're talking about the agreed upon rules for discussion. And then under what conditions? With guidance and support. So I want us to just think about, first of all, think about this standard and think about the kids that you're teaching right now and think, holy moly, this standard could work for a secondary classroom as well, right? Because we want our students to be able to do this. But we're going to build upon that rigor within our classrooms, excuse me, so that hopefully they'll be able to do this without all the guidance and support that they would need in kindergarten. So then our friends in Alex, specifically Haley Ridgway, has created this chart that continues to unpack and break down the standard. And this chart is invaluable because I'm telling you, when you are really looking at a standard and you're trying to figure out exactly what your students need to do in order to achieve proficiency, this chart is the go-to. And so I want us to take just a second to look at it. So if you'll notice at the top, you still have that same standard that we were looking at. And then in the boxes, you'll notice it tells you exactly what you would need to look at from that standard in order to unpack it, to understand how we would need to break this down. So if we look at the first column, the evidence of student attainment, what will students do to show attainment? So again, this is going to be our do. These are our verbs. So if you'll notice in red, it tells you how to begin, how you would begin your sentence. Should begin with students. Students carry on conversations with guidance and support, demonstrating the ability to listen attentively and take turns speaking. Teach your vocabulary in the next column. These are the key terms in the standard that are essential for the teacher to interpret and understand in order to lead students to grade level attainment. So I want us to notice that in this column, these words come specifically from the standard. And even though you as educated folks are going to understand definitions of these words, it's important for us to clearly understand the definitions of these words so that we can understand to what level of proficiency we would need our students to reach. And so it is significant for you to take a second and look at these vocab words in order for you to understand their complete meaning for the standard. And then in the third column, we have knowledge. What does the student need to know? Again, these are the concepts, the nouns. The sentence should begin with students know, and it would be a list of complete sentences. Students know agreed upon rules for discussion. That is not a complete sentence, but you know what we mean here. And then skills. What is it that students must be able to do? So the verbs here. Students, the sentence is going to begin with students are able to and be a list of complete sentences again. And just notice it would be a complete sentence if you put a period at the end of those bullets. Students are able to listen attentively. Students are able to take turns speaking. Students are able to follow agreed upon rules for discussions. think too about the sessions that we've had where we've talked about learning targets and objectives within your class, within your lessons. So think about this column. This column to me is one that is very significant because your learning targets are made right here. So you would assess in one class how students are able to listen attentively, or how students are able to take turns speaking. So just think about this column being significant for you as you're thinking about learning targets. And then lastly, understanding. What will students understand to attain the standard? This is the big idea. And it should begin with students understand that and be a list of complete sentences. Students understand that good conversations occur when participants listen to one another and speak one at a time. Okay? Okay, so again, that's kindergarten. So on your screen now, I want you to look at this chart. It's the same chart, but you have an 11th grade standard. So 11th and 12th grade standards are essentially worded the same. There are some content specific things that are changed, and there are a few minor adjustments, but this standard is also in 12th grade. But let's look at this. So participate in collaborative discussions involving multiple cultural and literary perspectives, responding to, contributing to, building upon, and questioning the ideas of others with relevant, appropriate evidence and commentary. Whoa, we have grown up since kindergarten here, right? But essentially, it is the same concept. And so this is an example of that standard moving all the way from kindergarten on up. And so I want us to look again at the titles of the columns, and I want us to look at what we would look at within these columns and think about this standard. So I have already completed this one for you. Oops, here we go. So the evidence of student attainment, students are going to orally present information, findings, and supporting evidence, including, allowing, addressing, so on and so forth. We have all of these bullets here. Teacher vocabulary. Notice that these words, again, come specifically from the standard. Collaborative, relevant, evidence, commentary, cultural, perspectives, literary, appropriate. So think about that kindergarten standard and think about the fact that those words might not have different connotations for teachers, but think about the connotations of these words. And so it is very significant for teachers to recognize the appropriateness of these words relating to the standard and to be very clear as to what it is that you are trying to assess your students on. And then knowledge. What does the student need to know? Again, the nouns. Students know techniques for orally presenting information, findings, and supporting evidence. Strategies for orally conveying a clear and distinct perspective, and understanding often results from addressing alternative or opposing perspectives. So notice that this doesn't specifically come from the standard. This is some different wording, but these again are our nouns. And then the skills. So remember to pay close attention to this column because this is where our learning targets would come. So if we think back to that kindergarten standard, you as secondary folks might think, well, with that standard, that could be, I could assess that within one class period. Okay, they're listening, they're taking turns speaking. Yes, in the secondary world, we would hope so, right? But if we think about how robust this standard is that's in front of us right now, obviously we cannot assess all of this within one lesson, right? And so we have to unpack the standard. We have to think about how we are going to assess students and how we're going to work up to proficiency of the standard. And we can do so by looking at these skills and how we can individually assess these skills as we are moving through our lessons. And so again, these would be our learning targets. Students are able to use techniques, orally convey, present information, address alternative or opposing perspectives. And then lastly, the understanding. What will students understand? What is the big idea? students understand that the effective participation in a collaborative discussion is dependent upon using relevant and appropriate evidence and commentary to engage a variety of audiences. So think about this big idea. This is essentially what we hope that kids are taking away from the standard, right? And so the standard might not mean much to them, but this understanding of why it's significant is going to play a part in their life after they leave us. Okay, so that's enough of me talking for a second. We're going to try to unpack a grade level standard that has already been assigned. And so what I need you to do is, first of all, I'm going to put a link for a Google Doc within the chat, but on the Canvas screen, you could also click right below where it says link, and that is an active link, and it'll take you to a Google Doc. And in that Google Doc, you'll see that you have, if you keep scrolling, you'll see that there are grade level charts for kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And so we're going to go to breakout rooms for your grade level. And so when I click breakout rooms, it's going to ask you to choose a breakout room. So choose a breakout room for the grade level with which you want to explore. So if you teach multiple grade levels, choose one that that you might be having some difficulty with, or choose one that you feel comfortable with. It really doesn't matter. And then when you get into your breakout room, scroll to the grade level chart. And I want you to look at the standard that's assigned on your chart. And I want you to repeat the steps that we just talked about as far as the kindergarten and 11th grade standard. If you'll notice at the very top of the Google Doc, you will see that you have the example chart there for you. So if you have questions as you're moving throughout, you can look back at that example chart. And then also, I just want you to know that hi guys, so it looks like we're back. And I know that was a short time. And so just looking at the Google Doc, it looks as if we weren't able to really go through the entire chart. And I recognize that, but we are short on time. And there are so many things that I want you to have exposure to before we leave. But I hope that you at least engaged in some really good conversation within those grade level groups. And I just want you to think about at this moment who you are after thinking about unpacking standards. And just know that it is a-okay if you're still at 1 and 2. But if you're at 3, I'm happy for you. If you are at 1 and 2 and you have some questions about unpacking standards, just know that you're more than welcome to use that time at the end of the session to talk through some of these things with not only your grade level peers, but also me and anyone else that is a state partner that hangs out at the end of the session. So just know that we're here to support you. This is a lot to really think about as far as unpacking standards is concerned. But again, I want you to recognize that ALEX is a resource that has started this process for you guys, and it is there for your taking. So I recognize that unpacking standards is tedious and it's time consuming, but it is very, very significant to us understanding how to get our students up to proficiency as far as grade level standards are concerned. But ALEX has, excuse me, ALEX has really worked through some of the hard parts for us. So just know that that tool is there for you. So after we think about unpacking the standards, we have to think about what happens after that. And this is where we get to really the meat of what we're doing. And this is where we're getting to some fun stuff too. So what happens next? We've got to plan to engage. So in the ELA classroom specifically, we want to think back to the old ARI adage of twirl. And so about 15 years ago, ARI used to have some secondary supports, and they would come into schools just like they're doing for K-3, and they would work with teachers. And we have given you access to the ARI document that has all kinds of literacy strategies for you. So if you remember back to the lesson planning session that I did with Lee Twig, in our resource document, we gave you access to that ARI document, and they have fashioned pretty much all of these activities around this acronym of TWIRL, which stands for thinking and talking, writing, investigating, reading, and listening. So when I was a baby teacher, I'll just say that my mentor teacher gave me the best advice that I received essentially throughout all my years of teaching. And she said that when you are planning a lesson, you need to make certain that students have an opportunity to talk, to read, and to write. And so that was at a moment where twirl was not a thing. And I guess I'm dating myself at this point, but we weren't talking about twirl at that point. And this teacher was a veteran teacher of many years, and that was some very powerful advice, because that is how I considered how to plan my lessons for engaging the students. And so we want to make certain that they have those opportunities. We have twirl in front of us because we want to try and implement as many of these components of twirl into our lessons as possible, but it's not always going to be feasible or effectively feasible for us to have all of these components in every lesson, right? And so we don't want to make something fit just because we want something cute. We want to make certain that it is effective. And so I want us to think about that. So while we're thinking about twirling, I want to kind of engage in a model lesson, but it's not really a lesson. It's just an activity that is very significant as far as engaging in this twirl process. And so as we are working through this, I want you to just kind of think back or think towards all of the components of twirl that we engage in. Okay, so on your screen, you will see that you have a video. We're about to watch this video. And as we're watching the video, just on a scrap sheet of paper, in your notes, in your phone, however you want to do this, I just want you to jot down some observations. So what are the things that you see? So when we're thinking about observations, I want us to remember that those are not inferences. So you can't write down white symbolizes purity, right? I mean, that is an inference based upon an observation that somebody is wearing white. So I want you to only write down things that you see. And so as we're moving through this, you're going to have lots of things that you are going to be able to observe. So the video is several minutes long. I want us to write down as many observations as we can, and then we're going to do something with it. All right. Okay, here we go.
Caught in a bad romance. Caught in a bad romance. Time. have suffrage. Vote whoa, won't stop. Ooh la la, till we have suffrage. It's gotten ugly, they passed the 15. Still women have no right, no guarantee to liberty. Child health, wealth, or property. We'll raise our banner across this land, 'cause franchise isn't just the right of a man. You never saw, yeah, you never saw. You know we don't want to take freedoms from you, just want our rights and nothing less. We cry for freedom, oh, hear our voice and see we're equal to all men. We the whole people, not just male citizens, form this most perfect union. Caught in a bad romance. Caught in a bad romance. Votes whoa, won't stop. Ooh la la, till we have suffrage. It is a horror, a cruel design that makes it criminal, a right that is mine. I want the vote, vote, I want to vote. Well, I think you're psycho, I think that it's sick. I'm queen of my home, raise my babies, that's it. Don't need to vote.
No, she don't want to vote.
The rights of citizens shall not be denied or abridged by the United States on account of sex. We cry for freedom, oh, hear our voice and see we're equal to all men. We the whole people, not just male citizens, form this most perfect union. Caught in a bad romance. Caught in a bad romance. Votes whoa, won't stop. Ooh la la, till we have suffrage. March, be courageous, fighting for our rights. We may just start greatness for the ages. Freedom, it is contagious. March, be courageous, fighting for our rights. We may just start greatness for the ages. Remember the ladies, not to be above, but equal to all men. We only ask to be part of this union. Comme dirait le français, c'est démocratie. Permettez-moi participer. I'm a citizen of this nation. An American. I want suffrage and independence. We cry for freedom, oh, hear our voice and see we're equal to all men. We the whole people, not just male citizens, form this most perfect union. I wanna wear pants. Caught in a bad romance. I want my suffrage and independence. Caught in a bad romance. Votes whoa, won't stop. Ooh la la, now we have suffrage.
Okay, so we made observations based upon the video. And so now we are going to go back to our breakout rooms. So in just a second, when I open up the breakout rooms, just be looking for the notification. It should come up on your screen, and then just go back to that grade level breakout room. But again, if I need to add you, it's not a big deal. But as you are in your breakout rooms, I want you to talk about the parts that you observed in the video. So our observations are going to be called parts. So in your breakout room, discuss the parts that you saw. And then as a group, I want you to determine the purposes of those parts. So if an observation was that you saw a woman wearing white, I want you to think about what the purpose of that woman wearing white would be. Like, why is she in white? And so I want you to think about this video as a whole, and how did this video as a whole support an argument or refute an argument, okay? And so once you get into your conversations within your breakout rooms, some things that might seem a little muddy now will become a little clearer. But again, just share those observations and then talk about why those observations are significant. Like, why did the video have those observations? Okay, here we go. Okay, welcome back. So I hope that you, again, I recognize that time is very short, but I hope that you had an opportunity to at least engage in some conversation. So I want us to think about what we just did. So we watched a video, which is a visual text. We made observations. So think about students in our classroom. They can all make observations, right? So here we are scaffolding a lesson or an activity to make certain that we are allowing everyone to experience at least a moment of success, right? And then another scaffold is when we're moving on to a deeper portion of this activity, which thinks about how those observations, how those parts are used for a purpose. We've allowed them to talk, to work together, right? And so we're asking students to think about this argument here because when we think about the writing that we are asking students to accomplish on the ACAP and the ACT, we know that they're going to have to write argument essays. And so it's significant for us to constantly be asking students to be writing with an argument in mind. So then I want you to just think about complexities of those purposes. So this is where, when we're moving on to this next part of the activity, parts, purposes, and complexities, this is where we are thinking about how these things are working together to create a deeper level of thinking, okay? And so what you have on your screen are some sentence starters or some discussion starters that could lead to students thinking about the complexities of a visual text like we just watched, or a written text. So I wonder, this reminds me of, this is similar to, I have a question about. So complexities. So if we wanted to take this a step further, we could ask students then to think about those parts, the purposes, and the complexities to put together some sort of writing. And so an example would be to have students complete this sentence template to form an argument about the women's suffrage movement in the United States through a lens of a character from the video. So I want us to think about using an activity such as this in order to introduce a topic. You know, so many times as ELA folks, I was extremely bad about, I'm going to tell you all about the author, I'm going to tell you all about the time period, instead of asking students to engage in some authentic moments of curiosity. And so if we showed this video to students when we were thinking about the 1900s, instead of telling them all about it, they're actually able to watch this video, form some questions. We could ask them to complete this writing activity, and then, excuse me, And then they have some questions in their mind as we are moving throughout some sort of unit, right? Or some piece of written text that deals with the suffrage movement. Even if that was informational text, think about how many times you're using informational text within your classroom and students are not engaged because they think it's boring, it doesn't have anything to do with them. But if we think about engaging students in some sort of introduction such as this, then it makes it even more engaging for them. So I want us to think about all that we just did. I'm not going to ask you to complete this sentence template really because of time at this point, but I want us to just think about all the things that we did within that activity. Did we think? Most definitely. Did we talk? Yes. Did we write? Well, we would have. Did we investigate? We investigated a little bit through some analysis. Did we read? Not really, but you could definitely make an extension of reading, and we listened to our peers, right? So essentially in this one activity, we twirled. So on this activity comes from the website Project Zero, which is an active link again in your Canva slides. But this is, if you'll notice on the screen, this is a project that's put together by Harvard, and they have created thinking routine toolbox. And in this toolbox, I just want you to notice that you have all of these thinking routines that are available to you to use for a variety of tasks within your classroom. And I pulled parts, purposes, and complexities here from investigating objects and systems. And instead of having students investigate objects or systems, I asked you, and I would ask students to look at this through the lens of a text. And so this is where it comes from. I just want you to know that you have this resource. When you click on the different thinking routines, it opens up to this page. And when you click on these resource links, it takes you to the directions, and it also takes you to any kind of resource that you need in order to complete that, whether it's a graphic organizer or whatnot. And so this is a wonderful resource to use in a variety of ways. So many times we say that students these days don't think. Well, one reason that they don't is because we give them all the information, right? And so I love this resource because it gives us a variety of ways to create those thinking moments in class. So I want us to think too about a different, another resource that has been given to you previously within our prep sessions called the DIG. So if you click in your in your Canva link, you'll go to the special education live binder, and this resource has been given to you previously, but again, you have it linked here. And so think about using this DIG document to consider how you could scaffold your lessons and your activities in order to reach students at all levels of learning. But I have created, or I have included this within the presentation again, because I just want you to think about those collaborative teachers that are coming into your classroom. A lot of the collaborative teachers that are coming into your classroom are also brand new teachers. And so they might not even recognize that this resource is available. And so if they are struggling with helping your students within your content area, make sure that you're sharing this with special ed teachers. And also use this document as a way to have a conversation with collaborative teachers about your standards. A lot of times our collaborative teachers are going to all different content areas, and so they don't feel as if they are the masters of this content, and so they don't have as many conversations about our specific content as we need them to. And this is a document that helps us kind of see what they could do to help our kids and kind of facilitate that conversation with them to make it feasible for everybody involved. So just make sure that you are aware that you have this document at your hands, and make sure that you're using it. It is such a powerful resource. Okay, so we are nearing the end of our time together, but I have one more resource that I want to share with you all that has been a game changer for me in my classroom. I was in the classroom for 16 years, and this was a document that came to me in the last several years of my teaching, my classroom teaching, and it was a game changer because as secondary folks, the fact of the matter is any kind of teacher prep program that we're going through really just prepares us for content and not necessarily the explicit instruction of reading and writing. And we all know that there is a great emphasis on writing at this point, because we need to not only prepare our students for some standardized exams, but we want to definitely prepare our students to be better communicators. And the Writing Revolution is a text that greatly supports that idea of bringing an explicit writing instruction into the classroom. And so I share this with you because it is a whole book that you would have to purchase, but there are lots of free resources that are linked on their website. If you click on the book on your Canva site, it will take you to the Writing Revolution's page. You have to create an account, but it's totally free. There are graphic organizers, there are unit plans, there are all kinds of things in there, and they've never sent me any spam emails. So just know that. But two of the components of there's six components of the Writing Revolution are: sentences are the building blocks to all writing, and the content of the curriculum drives the rigor of the writing activity. And so I want you to just think about these things, because we're going to look at one activity that was a game changer for my classroom, and it is so simple for teachers to plan, yet creates such a moment of critical thinking for our students. It's called the because, but, so activity. And this is one that I have used in lots of professional learning over the past few years, because it creates, again, such moments of critical thinking. However, it is very simple, because we're essentially just putting together 3 sentences. And so the way the activity works is that you give students a sentence stem, so the beginning of a sentence, and you will give them 3 sentences. All 3 of the sentence stems are the same. All that changes would be the conjunctions. So an example would be: the women's suffrage movement was significant because, the women's suffrage movement was significant but, the women's suffrage movement was significant so. So when you're thinking about those 3 sentences within your head, I just want you to think about how you had to change directions of each of those sentences based upon the different conjunctions. But essentially, I've given you half the sentence, right? And so I am going to put 3 sentences on the screen. And when I put those on the screen, I'm going to stop recording, because I really want you to think about these 3 sentences, and I want you to share your writing. My timer for 4 minutes or so when I put the sentences on the screen, and I want you to share your responses within the chat. So when you are completing this activity, I want you to not only think about how you want to complete the sentences, but I also want you to think about what your thinking does, how your thinking changes when you are moving through these 3 sentences. And I also want you to realize that when we give this activity to students, we would ask them to complete all 3 sentences at the same time, because we do want them to go through that process of thinking of the different changes based upon the different conjunctions. Okay, so let me go ahead and, well, no, for time's sake, I'm just going to move to the next slide. Okay, so you have 3 sentences on the screen, And I want you to complete those 3 sentences in the chat, but I'm going to stop recording. So only those of us that are here right now